Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Spots of Love podcast. I am your host, of course, Karan. Today, we have David Voss, the myth, the legend, the Stan Lee of Barney. Um, let's see. You were the original Barney. You played other supporting characters like the Winkster, the tap dancing sign, the Elvis-inspired starfish, Litterbot, the dancing blue jay, the little duck with the feather on its back,
Yep.
the assistant performance director, and so much more. I want to say that it's just an honor to have you here, and I just can't say thank you enough for being here today and for all the work that you did with this franchise that shaped my life and millions of other children around the world. We're really, really excited to talk to you, and welcome to the Spots of Love podcast.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And I can tell you that I'm just as big a fan as yours as you are for us. So if it wasn't for the fans and everything, that's what makes it so special. And from the very beginning, it was something magical. And just thank you for having me here. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, for sure. The way that we always start is we just like to go back to the beginning. For me, it's not the beginning of Barney, but it's the beginning for you in your life. How did you get involved in performing? What was that spark that said, "Hey, I want to do this thing for the rest of my life"?
Well, it started for me when I was in high school. So I really didn't do any acting when I was younger at all as a child. I was given the opportunity to go to an art school where they specialize in theater, dance, music, or visual arts. And I specialized in not visual arts, I specialized in theater. And so that is where I learned to do mime. And from there, and I'm going to jump around a little bit just to let you know, just because sometimes things connect and I'm like, oh, how did that connect? Or where am I going or whatever. But just
for sure.
So I was part of a mime troupe and I auditioned as a mime for the audition. So during that audition, they were looking for puppeteers, dancers, and mimes. And my specialty was mime. So that's kind of how I got started in the whole acting foray is through school. So I did a lot of theater. I did commercials. I even did a lot of costume work while I was in high school. But that led me to Barney, where I auditioned as a mime. And from there, it was, kind of history in a lot of other different ways. So
awesome. When you finally got the opportunity to audition for Barney, how long was it after you had been out of high school that audition came up for you?
It was probably, I think it was, okay. And you're going to ask me questions that sometimes I don't know the answer to just because I can barely remember 5 minutes ago sometimes.
For sure.
It was, I'm thinking that the summer after, or maybe it was 2 summers after. So it was relatively recent, but not too close. So when I did audition, like I said, I auditioned as a mime. And before it was even Barney, I think a lot of folks know it was Danny the dinosaur. Yeah. So I was like, okay, this is cool. I've done costume work. What can I do to kind of stand out? So I did my mime as a day in the life in the day of Danny the dinosaur. So I woke up, I had my music going, I ate some breakfast, ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for breakfast, and went out and just danced and kind of goofed around and pet a dog and, just really kind of random stuff.
Yeah.
So they could see that I could act without speaking. So that's why it really connected with the character. Because,
sure.
Then I think they had already, Bob West already had the job. So, they were looking for a body. So, yeah.
Awesome. So did they, at that moment then that you auditioned, I assume then they already had some concept of a design of what Barney looked like? Were you able to see anything, or did it just give you a vague description?
At that moment, I don't quite know. So everything I think is from when I got started, everything was kind of very fast. So it was kind of blurry where I don't remember a lot of things in order, but I remember that I don't I didn't have a callback, which was really awesome and amazing because sometimes you're just like, okay, the process can seem kind of long, but for me, really quick. And I liked it. It was really cool. And I went into for a costume fitting with Susanna with Irene Corey Designs.
Yeah. And
it was fun because even when I was in there for the costume fitting, I was dancing around the costume, seeing how it would move and all that jazz. And everyone knows that costume. They call it the Big Blue Dog because instead of being purple, Barney looked really blue on TV because it was really dark purple and it just came out blue. But they even changed a few things even during the costume sessions because Barney at first had claws. And they slowly softened those and they made them into, little round balls. So, so it went through a couple changes, good ones.
Do you, and I know you said some things you could barely, it's so long ago, so I don't expect you to remember everything. But with that foam suit, that very first suit, do you remember how much that thing weighed in comparison to like things later down the line?
All I remember is when I put it on, I had this kind of harness thing, and I moved the mouth with kind of a gear that was attached to the mouth, the bottom lip, so it would move back and forth. So I was doing this to make the mouth move while I was acting with the other hand, and I was doing some dance steps, and then there was also one thing that made the eyes blink. So I was doing like 5 things all at once inside the costume.
Wow.
And at first, I mean, even looking back on things when I was watching the first 3 videos, I didn't move as much as it slowly changed after the last 3 videos I was in. It's almost kind of like night and day. At first, I was I wanted to stay on my mark. I didn't want to get out of frame. I didn't want to accidentally, hit a kid with the fake arm. So I was really conscious about staying in the frame and doing all that. But as I got more comfortable in the second time around, I was jumping and doing the Barney shake with the tail and all that jazz. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So it was slowly becoming, the character was evolving. So it was wonderful. It was fun.
Well, and you have to think about it too. A lot of people don't know when you get in a big suit like that, all of your movements have to be larger than life, or else it won't read, right? If you're just moving like an average human in a giant suit like that, you won't see most of it because it gets lost. It's interesting that you said a lot of people have always assumed that those original suits were operated like Big Bird, where there's a hand inside the jaw, and moving, not necessarily a rod. I think that's new information that all of us have just found out.
And even later, when David Joyner and Carrie and Josh, those guys were in the costume, even then it changed because they had a bite bar where they would bite and move the mouth. So, and the eyes, I think at that time were kind of, the eyes kind of moved with the movement. So they were so it was really neat because it really looked like Barney was looking at you when the performer moved the head back and forth. So that was really cool. So I was like, it evolved. So good stuff.
Do you remember what it was like filming those early 6 videos? Any favorite stories or things of that time? I know, like we've talked, and I compare it to my TV show where you have to start from somewhere it's very little, and you're just seeing what works, what doesn't work. What was that experience like in those late 80s, early 90s, working on those videos?
Well, I can tell you, working with the cast and crew was amazing. It was, you always hear us talking that it's like family, and it really was. The kids, we played thumb war between takes. We did rock, paper, scissors between takes. So to keep the kids and myself, entertained while they were reading the lights or whatever they had to do. We did a lot of fun stuff. So for me, it was work, but it was fun work. It was something that, being a performer, that's what you want. That's something where you go in there and you look forward to going to work.
For sure.
The crew was amazing. So many people, and you're going to hear a lot of us that worked on the set talk about Miss Penny. She's walking over above us now, but she she was one of those people that had that Barney heart, and she was, she was the choreographer and the performance director. So she brought a lot of things together. Stephen White as the writer, just brought things to life as well. The directors, and it was really a family environment where we just all had that really great vibe, and I always like to say this, for me, and I know a lot of other folks, it was a golden moment in time. Something that started off so small like a seed and blossomed like a flower. Yeah. And became a meadow, with all the other little flowers. Yeah.
And, I say that a lot because the way everyone who was a part of that in the very beginning, from Backyard Gang to the very first seasons of Barney and Friends, everyone just seemed to be the right pick, from the costume performers, you and Joyner, the writers, the songwriters, the kids on the show, other characters, Cheryl Leach and the rest of the group who put that together. I don't think if any one of you were missing from that puzzle, it would be the same show. It would just somehow magic just worked that everyone just made this amazing franchise that it grew to be.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard to put into words, Sometimes I don't even know how to describe it or explain it, because it was something that was really special. And, from the music, the set, to the cast, and just everything kind of gelled. And it grew to be even more. But from the very beginning, it was really sweet, It was amazing.
And I love to hear you talk about how much of it was of a family. We've heard that so many times over the years as people have started to come out and talk about it. And sometimes you think everyone's just saying it, but it could not have been that. I was invited earlier this year to the publishing department's anniversary that they hold every year when I was down in Texas. And you really could see from everyone that was there that it truly was a family between everyone. Everyone loved each other and had that respect for each other as much as it showed on this show behind the scenes. And being there in the mix with all of them, you could really see that this truly was a family of people who cared about what they were doing and cared about each other. And that spilled through into the content that you guys made and then ultimately showed to everyone else.
Yeah, and I like how you put that, because it's true. Sometimes you can't fake something that's just genuinely good, genuinely beautiful, and like you said, it just shined through of what we did, and I'm so proud to be a part of it, and so
awesome. In those early days too, there's been some videos that we've seen of Barney performing the original Blue Dog that we call it. And then also the second version, performing at hospitals or in like store visits and things like that. At that time, was it just you? Were you the one doing those hospital visits and performances and things?
I remember a few of them. And like I said, since it was so long ago, I remember going to the hospital. I remember them putting that Band-Aid on my nose before I went into the kids' room. And I'm like, oh, that was me. And I remember doing the school event with Cheryl and Kathy. And then I can tell you this, then since Barney was, I guess, a special events Barney, they would take out the fake arm and then I could put both arms in. So you can see me animating the costume a lot more. And, that's when I was like, oh, this is amazing. Because since I came from a theater background, I was like, okay, this is where I'm home. Being on set, you know how it is being on set. And, at the same way, being live theater. Two totally different things. You're on set. Okay, what take is this now? Oh, geez. Okay, but you still got to keep that energy up. Missed my mark. Oh, no, now we got to do another take. But so it's just such a great thing when you have a group that knows each other so well and just makes the magic happen. And let's see, a few other special appearances during that time. And see, I'm not sure if that was when, I think I might have been the only one doing the special appearances for those first 3 videos.
Yeah.
When things went on hiatus and then they started the second 3, I remember remember going to another theater. I remember going to a mall, but it wasn't as huge as it was when Kerry Stinson was doing the special events.
Sure.
When he was doing special events, it was just like a rock star had gone to the mall. You know, for me, it was just, a few kids might have known, of course, if they see a dinosaur, they're going to come up and take pictures and hug him anyway. But it wasn't as it was when David Joyner was doing the TV series and Kerry was the special events Barney. It was huge. Sure. So, it's totally different. So I was like, in fact, I remember one time we were at a theater outside. It was me and Dennis DeShazer. He was the Barney handler at the time, so he helped dress me and all that jazz. And then I went outside, and I remember on the side of the road just waving to people in cars as they were going by. And I have no idea what we were promoting at the theater. It might have been the videos. I'm sure it was. But I just remember standing by the road, waving to cars, as honk, honk, honk. So but now Barney would start traffic if that happened. Later, so.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone be wanting to take pictures and all of that stuff now.
Crazy.
So, and most people know if they followed the franchise. First, before we move on, I just want to say I have 3 kids. My youngest daughter is 3 years old right now, and my youngest son is 1 year old. My daughter they both love Barney, the new version that's coming now. Right. All the stuff I've showed them before. Right. Her favorite right now is, she calls it the big one, Barney, but it's the Backyard Gang version of Barney. Those first 6 videos. Just this morning, literally, she woke me up wanting to watch those, and she watched all 6 of those videos back to back this morning. So she loves those as much as all the other ones. So it's still alive and well after so many years and looking very different than everything else. But kids, it still connects with kids. Yeah,
that's amazing. And the folks that have had the VHSs and have recorded them and put them on YouTube and stuff, if it wasn't for that, I mean, I don't have the VHSs anymore because, as things slowly evolved, things were DVD, and I don't think they made the first 6 into DVDs.
Never.
So if it wasn't for YouTube and folks videoing their DVDs and putting it on YouTube, some of that stuff wouldn't even be around and folks wouldn't know. But so that's really cool. Yeah, I love it.
We know that you left the franchise after those first 6 videos, and you went and you joined the military for some time. I think being based in Germany. Are you willing to share a little bit of that experience of what it was like? I never had to enlist in the Army or things like that. I can't because I have asthma. So I tried at one point. They turned me away because of that. What was your experience like, fighting for the country and just being over there in Germany and experiencing a different sort of life, if you will?
Well, I remember the reason, because folks are like, why'd you join the Army if you were doing Barney? I mean, that doesn't even make sense. Yeah. Well, during that time, when we finished the second 3, so after the 6th video, they were going to promote it, and we were on hiatus. And sometimes when you're on hiatus, it can be months, years, whatever. Oh, yeah. And I was looking for, as an actor, sometimes work is very hard to find. And a lot of my relatives have been in the military. So I was like, okay, I just felt like it was time for me to serve my country. And so that's why I joined. And there's kind of a few funny stories. When I was in, no one really knew I was Barney because, for me, it was just, a gig that I did. It was wonderful. It was amazing. But I didn't know it was going to be this huge. So first of all, you have to understand me as a soldier. I was a really good soldier. I didn't do, but one of my sergeants would always tell me, Dave, or Voss, because he call you by your last name, Voss, you're a good soldier, but you just don't have that killing spirit. And I was like, okay, thanks. I'm glad. So instead of making me the gunner of our vehicle, I was the driver, which I loved. I was still serving my country, doing what I had to do. But, for me, it was always just different.
Yeah.
And I never saw combat. I was over in Germany. When we marched, when you hear the cadence, left, 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 right, left. Well, for me, from Barney's Campfire Sing-Along, I'm going, one, all the ants go marching one by one, hurrah, hurrah. The ants go marching two by two, hurrah. So anyway, of course I'm not saying it, but in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. And so I still kept that essence alive. In my heart and my spirit. So that's kind of how, and after 2 years, I got out. And I served my time, I served my contract, honorable discharge. During that whole time, Miss Penny would always write me. And she asked me how I was doing and how are things and all that jazz. And she knew that when I got out, what was I going to do? And I said, I'm not sure yet, still, working things out. And she asked if I wanted to be her assistant, the choreographer's assistant on set. And this is kind of where this is kind of when Dave Voss started to become the Stanley of Barney, because now I was no longer Barney. I was Miss Penny's assistant on the set. Yeah. So that was kind of the beginning of like different roles, starting here and there. And it was fun. Working on the set is amazing. But like I said, you know how it is. Sometimes when you get up to 15 takes, you're like, oh, geez.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think it ever was 15, but even if it was 10 or 12, this can be a lot. So for sure. And I can tell you this, even working then, it was still that Barney essence, that Barney joy, working on the set. And the performers were amazing. Every now and then, one of the kids didn't know a step, and I was like, "Yes, I can go in and help them with their steps." Yeah, because they were great kids too, and they were professionals, and they were having fun as well. And once again, playing thumb war and rock paper scissors between sets. But yeah, it was so much fun being Miss Penny's assistant, and yeah,
that's awesome. And we'll touch on Miss Penny and what you did with her in a little bit. There's some questions about that as well. But before we get there, what did you ever get to be? We called them fleece suits, and I know you said you weren't sure what that meant. When Barney changed from when Irene and Suzanne changed from the foam and started using the Antron fleece to make Barney softer, we call those fleece suits, all the ones after Backyard Gang. Did you ever get any opportunities to wear the PBS versions of the suit?
Once. It was when I did Barney for a special event in the Twin Cities. But I only did it once. And that's when I wore the fleece suit. It was amazing. But I wasn't used to the bite bar. So when I was trying to do this and dance, I was moving so much I broke the bite bar.
Oh wow!
Because I wasn't used to it, and it was my very first time doing a special appearance, and they brought the costume back, and they're like, "What did you do, Dave Voss? You bit through the bite bar and broke?" And I was like, "I don't know, I don't know." So let's just say that's where they're like, "Okay, well, maybe your Barney time has passed, and that's okay, but we're still gonna bring you in, and you're just gonna do the other jobs, okay?" And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, that's okay."
That's awesome. That's amazing.
That was the only time I did the fleece suit, and yeah.
Oh man, it's cool though, because we've always wondered, because you've always been around. I think you're the longest running person to be a part of that franchise, in many different ways. But being there from the beginning to almost near the end, I think.
Even towards the end, I know that they were doing more special appearances than anything, because since the show, had reached its conclusions, like I said, they were still doing special appearances because it was still on, but they weren't filming anymore. So I was still out there doing special events. I remember going with Carrie and Dean Went to Las Vegas one time, and I was dressing Carrie. It was really cool. So I was still, once again, another hat. Dave Voss is now the wrangler for Barney. Which Carrie, he's so funny, and Dean, they're just two cut ups, and we just had a great time in Las Vegas. So yeah, so I don't know like I said, I don't know the dates, I don't know the numbers, but yeah, I was there from the beginning even till after doing special events. So
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's fun.
That's awesome. I love that you mentioned Dean as well, because he's someone that we hear about a little bit, but he doesn't do interviews, or you don't see him a lot. And he's another person where we're always like, man, I wonder what Dean's experience was like, because he was the longest voice for Barney. We have Bob, who was a classic, but Dean and Carrie were the longest running performers of that character. And I know they have stories that people would just love to hear.
Well, and see, being on tour, I would see Dean a lot, because on tour we would go to hospital visits, and we would also go to the media stations, the television stations. And a lot of times we would take Dean with us so Barney could actually speak and say something. Otherwise, Dave's wearing another hat, I was the spokesperson, and because Barney was saving his voice for the show, so I would speak for Barney. I said, Barney's here in town, and we're going to be doing a show, and we hope everyone, the spiel. But when we had Dean, it was just a different layer of fun and happiness and joy, because he brought Barney's voice to the hospital and into the media station. So, like I said, I don't know how many voice folks you have talked to from the Barney area, but you know how it is working with puppets. When you get those guys together, they're just funny, and there's a crowd.
You never know what's going to happen.
Exactly. So I have so much admiration for anyone that does voices. Patty and Julie Johnson, and because sometimes their mics will be live between takes, and they're just telling jokes here, they're telling jokes here, and we're just all like, that's a good one.
That's awesome. Is there anything with Barney, with you being there for so long, was there anything that you would have liked to see Barney cover in a project or an episode or something that they never had a chance to do?
That is a question I've never been asked. So let me think just a second. Okay, this is thinking outside the box a lot. What if Barney did a remix, a couple remixes of his songs, something? And this kind of ties in with the new series in my mind, because Barney songs are very like nursery rhymes a lot, and some of them are like kind of a little bit more upbeat, and some of them are more jazzy. But for the most part, they kept kind of the same style and theme. But if they did a remix, it would just be different. But they were still keeping to the theme of the show, so I totally understand. Tie that into the new series. It is very, and I love it. I love the theme song. It's very dancey. It's fun. It's cool. Of course, I'm a fan of Bob West's voice. And of course, I'm a fan of the original lyrics, but I like the new song. I was like, oh, this is cool. It's kind of jazz, and do some stuff. So I can see a lot of movement to it, which makes sense because it's animated, so you can do more with animation. And
for sure.
And this is what I would say: tie the new song in at the beginning and do the old song at the end. So that way you kind of have a collaboration. And it starts out really fast and high energy, and it ends kind of on a really soft note. So,
that would be really cool.
Did I answer your question at all?
You definitely did. That would be really cool. They did in the original series. They remixed songs once. I know they did "Mary Had a Little Lamb," like the rap version thing, which is always cool to hear something different for sure.
Right. Yeah. That's good stuff.
Talking about working with Miss Penny, that we've always watching Carrie's podcasts and hearing so many different people, everyone from the kids that he interviews to folks like you guys, everyone always makes time to mention Miss Penny and what she brought to that series. I was a kid who the way I grew up, my intro into my love for music and acting came from Barney, because I would stand in front of the TV and mirror every single movement you, and then eventually Joyner, then eventually Carrie would do in the suit, all the way till I was well into high school. But that's where I found my love that I like to do this performing kind of thing.
Yeah.
So all those movements that Penny taught you all, I started to emulate those in my own living room as a young kid. Did she allow for much for you guys, like improv or flourishing during your choreo, or was it very much like this is the step and staying into that because of the kids that watches?
That is a very good question, because when you work with kiddos, sometimes they might not be trained in dance, so they might not be able to do some of the steps.
Yeah.
Having said that, Miss Penny set the bar high. And a lot of times when you set the bar high, kids will rise up to that level.
Oh, yeah.
Because, they're learning and they want to do it. But every now and then, you're going to have someone that just can't quite do it. And that's okay. That's perfect. And that is when Miss Penny would say, okay, we just have to have a plan B, just a different step. And she would adjust and make it fit for that character. And sometimes, this is kind of funny. In my opinion, as a dancer and a choreographer, you either have rhythm or you don't. You can get better. You can't really teach rhythm. You either have it or you don't. So one of the kiddos, a poor guy, he was an awesome performer, but it just wasn't quite on beat, and that was okay. And that's when she would adjust things, and she would make, like I said, either easier or change the step. So, and that's what you have to do, because they're kids first. And I have to say this.
Yes.
If they're not having fun, what's the point? If we're not having fun, what's the point? Yes, a lot of hard work, but at the end of the day, you want it to be fun.
Yeah.
It's not going to be fun all the time, but you want them to enjoy it and look back and say, yeah, I had the best time ever doing that. So
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Yeah. I love hearing about Miss Penny. I wish she was still around so we could hear stories from her perspective, but you can see the touch that she left on all of you, and you all are carrying her legacy and her stories and her remembrance as you share your stories. And I think that's the next best thing that you can get, almost as if she's in the conversation with you, because of how much she left with all of you to share your love for her. So another great person that it's just so wonderful that she was a part of that franchise to make it what it was, for sure.
She definitely left, you know how they say, dogs leave paw prints on your heart?
Oh, yeah.
Miss Penny left love and Barney prints on our hearts, which in turn touched everyone that we danced for and performed for. So
that's beautiful.
What do they say? Iron sharpens iron. So
for sure.
Like a ripple effect. So
yeah, for sure. Switching a little bit of the gears, as we know, you played the Winkster among many other characters, but the Winkster is one of those. I think that's the first role you did outside of Barney within the franchise. I understand that there was a lot of makeup required for that, for you and the other lady who also played that character. What was playing that character like? Did you have to audition for him and those kind of things?
Yeah, I auditioned for the Winkster, and one of my biggest auditions was they knew I could dance, they knew I could act, they knew I could do, they didn't know if I could sing because I was always in the costume. But Winkster had to have a voice, and he sang "Please and Thank You" and "You Are Special," and of course the Winkster song.
The Winkster song.
So they had to make sure I could sing. So in the audition, I had to sing "Happy Birthday," and they're like, "Oh, you can sing." So, and trust me, I'm not a professional singer, but I can sing, so it is okay.
Yeah.
So the thing about the Winkster is, I love doing him. I mean, the makeup was kind of scary for kiddos. So looking back, they maybe should have softened it a little bit, or maybe changed it up, or maybe not have had so much. Maybe just prosthetic nose, and maybe I don't know. But it is what it is. And someone told me that if Barney ever had a villain, I was the villain. So I was like, oh. Well, that's kind of interesting. That's kind of cool. So once again, another hat that I put on was I was Barney's only villain. So
Yeah,
that was nice. You know, the kids, they just didn't want anyone to take Barney's bag. Like, how dare you take his bag? It's Barney's.
yeah, for sure. But see, the Winkster also, you could see him as a villain, sort of a very different character from what you would see in the world of Barney. But he had good intentions.
Yes.
He just went about them the wrong way.
Yeah, exactly. And he learned, you know, by the end, he was like, oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh.
Absolutely. We've always wondered, were there ever talks about bringing the Winkster back or merchandise for the Winkster or any of that kind of stuff?
Well, I asked a few times, and they were like, hey, the Winkster's not coming back. And I was like, oh, man.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I'm like, really? He's like, you don't even have to ask twice. He's not coming back. I'm like, oh, well, okay. It was a moment in time.
Yeah.
But
man.
yeah, I know. One of my favorite videos is Radio City, and you know, so Barney, not Barney, the Winkster will always be there. So
yeah.
So
and that's one of those videos, along with Imagination Island, that are held as like the two, like, and aside from those two, the Christmas specials, Waiting for Santa and Night Before Christmas, those are like the four legendary videos. Everyone, when you talk about what's your favorite Barney video, it's one of those four all the time. So it's just solidified in place. You know, I don't think it's been 30 plus years and it's not came off that list. It's always going to just be the precedent of what was great Barney, you know, and that was when Barney was really blowing up, right? Really selling out in however fast it was, you know, and all those kind of things.
And to tie into that that's kind of when they were like, oh, if Barney can do this at Radio City, then Barney can go on tour. So that's kind of where they had the inkling of where, we sold out for every show at Radio City. So why not bring Barney off the screen into where they can actually see him live? So that's when Miss Penny asked me if I wanted to go on tour, because they were looking for 4 dancers. And I was like, yeah, I'll go. Because I changed hats again where I wasn't behind the scenes. I was now going to perform again. I was like, you don't have to ask me twice to perform.
Oh, for sure.
So that's why that was the reason, not because I didn't love the set. I loved the set. I loved everything about it, but I wasn't performing. So they gave me the opportunity to go back into costumes and perform again and see the kids, you know, their smiles and in real time, you know. Yeah. It like I said, when I think about these things, my mind goes in so many different ways, because the very first tour, we were voted the family show tour of the year in, I think it was 1997 or 98.
Wow.
It was Barney's Big Surprise. So, and that was a huge honor. And that was when I met Barry Pearl, Tinkerput, who I call TP, and short for Tinkerput. And I know he's been on your show, and he's just a sweetheart, a sweet guy. And when I got to play him as his understudy, I wasn't his understudy all the time, but there were a few times I was his understudy, and I loved it. And they called me Tinkerput Jr. And I told him, I said, okay, I can't do what you do, Barry, but I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try to make you proud and, you know, do my best. Yeah. And so I enjoyed playing his character, because Putt is iconic, you know, just some of the other characters that are iconic, and it will always be there. So he's a good guy.
He's another one that everyone's always like, man, they should have brought Tinkerput in. I know there was, from what I understand, there were talks to bring his character into the series at one point, but they didn't want him to take away the light from Barney, so it fell apart. And that's a story that he shared. But yeah, he's also one of those beloved characters that everyone's just like, if we could see more. People have said it about the new Barney's World. If we could see the Winkster or Tinkerput show up in this new series, I would flip out. Like there's still hope there, I guess, that they they could show up again.
Well, you know how it is with some shows, like the remakes of the Brady Bunch, and you see some of the old characters pop in, or Charlie's Angels. You see some of the old characters pop in. Yeah. It would be kind of cool if they did the same thing. But if not, it's okay too.
Yeah, well, you've seen for one of their music videos they just released, they brought back Mr. Boyd.
Yeah.
And he's like in the park again, and so I'm that's one reason my kids are going to watch the show, because they love it, and I'm going to watch it just because, one, I'm excited to see new Barney, but I'm also like, I wonder what other things they bring back from that classic series into this new world, just as like a little piece of extra for people who grew up with it or were involved with it. Yeah, so totally. You never know.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be really cool.
Yeah,
and that's something. Talking about the new series, the new show. Like I said, I'm excited for it because, as Barney, as the costume evolved, as the sets evolved, as the kids grew up, it changed, and this is just the next level of that change. So for me, I'm like, this is cool. There's always things like you said. I wish or I hope they add to it, and if not, that's okay too. I'm really one of those that it's the most important is they're bringing smiles to kids' faces, to kids' hearts. They're still going to be teaching them lessons, so that's what's important. So even if it's obviously it's totally different, but even even in spite of that, it's still going to be great.
Well, and it's bound to be different because it's been 15 years since anything Barney related was new and created. So kids think differently now. The way they digest content is so much shorter and different now. So, and animation is the big thing. So of course there's no way it could be the same. Time has changed so much, but you're absolutely right. And I feel the same way. As long as they're still keeping true to who Barney was, whether it's a very different look of Barney or not, kids now have their version now that they get to relate to, and hopefully it inspires them as much as you guys it did for us growing up. You never know.
And even it's Barney was all about using your imagination, and being animated is very where you use your imagination. I mean, even in the very first scene, I don't know if you noticed, the leaves in the tree are purple. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I was like, oh, that's cool. I like that. Some people would have never made the leaves purple or magenta, whatever. But I was like, oh, that's cool. I like that. So then, I started to notice some other little things and differences. But I think it's going to be a good thing. So I'm excited.
For sure. Me too. Walking backwards just a little bit, talking about Barry Pearl again. He shared when he was on the podcast that you just said that you were his understudy at one point. He said that there was a moment during the tour that I think he got sick or something, and you had to fill in for the show. Do you remember this?
Maybe, possibly, but I remember him doing an audition once, and I had to fill in for him because he either was going to an audition in LA or he was going to film something in LA.
Oh, I see.
I think it was for My Favorite Martian, but of course, don't quote me because I'm not sure. But so I got to fill in for him. But it was fun. And speaking of understudy, putting on another cap, when I did the second leg of Barney's Big Surprise, I wasn't performing. I was the dance captain on tour. But I did get to perform because I was the understudy for all the dancers. That was when I was understudy for Barry, and it was once again it was fun because I got to do a lot of different things.
Out of all those many different roles and positions that you had with that show, is there, and I know this is a hard question, especially when you're a performer and that's just your thing, but is there one that you loved doing more than anything else that you've done in that franchise?
There's always a few costumes that are easier to manipulate, easier to bring to life, easier to breathe in. ones that are just kind of really fun. I will never forget the ducks. The 4 little ducks, because I was the very first duck that went out on stage. And this is the time where, since I came from an acting background and not necessarily a dance background, I couldn't count music in. And it was really hard for me. But the duck behind me, Tracy, one of the dancers, she would always say, okay, are you ready, Dave? Here we go. And she would count 5, 6, 7, 8, and I would step on 1 because at that time, I couldn't hear music. Now I can. But the ducks were just fun. And I remember waddling back and forth during rehearsals. And I was so sore for like the first 2 weeks. Because we were building up all these muscles, just waddling, getting on stage. Yeah. So I would say the ducks is one. I would say the polar bear in Colorful World. Love the polar bear. I would say the starfish on Colorful World.
Colorful World, yeah.
Yeah. And maybe also the tap dancing sign, because you got to see my face, so it was different.
Yes.
And I would say the last tour when I was the Muffin Man. That was fun. Yeah. I was a big muffin.
Yeah. One of my favorite videos to act out was Colorful World, because when they would sing Cook a Cold and the polar bear would pop up, like I would just really get into it, because just the way you danced and like all that's like and I love that they brought those characters or those costumes back during the park era, the Riff era is what we call it. Yep. When they did the animal zoo. So I think you played the monkey at that point, right?
Yep.
And then you had the other animals there.
Yeah, and Josh was the polar bear then.
Whoa, really?
They put Josh in the polar bear.
Oh, that's cool.
They put me in the monkey, and the monkey was not one of my favorite costumes because the face was like right here. And sure. It was so hard to breathe in. That was a very difficult costume. So yeah, not one of my favorite costumes to wear.
Man, I'm a freak in this idea of like, it's just to know that Josh was in the polar bear and you're in the monkey, and then you have Carrie and Barney, and 3 Barneys are on, and no one ever knowing that until now. That, like, to me, that type of stuff excites me so much.
Convergence of Barneys, I love it.
Yeah. Oh man, that's super awesome. That's awesome. I'm sad because I never got to see the Let's Go tour that introduced Riff because they didn't put it on video. It came.
I know.
I don't know what it's so sad to me because I just looking at the story of what Steve wrote and the song list and the characters. Yeah. I'm like, oh man, and it came close to me. I live in Omaha, Nebraska, and it came to Lincoln, our capital, which is like 45 minutes away. But our family couldn't afford things like that really. So when the show came, we couldn't afford to buy tickets to go see it. And I just remember this is the only time Barney came that close to us until they did Birthday Bash. And I missed it. And I was like, oh, man. And then it didn't come out on video. So I was like, oh, man.
Well, and, I don't know if you knew, they cut the tour short.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And Barney, inside fact, was because attendance was low. And I'm going to tell you why it was low. Because they weren't really promoting it like they did previous seasons. Seasons, we were sold out, but they just didn't promote it like they should have before. And I'm not sure why, who knows? That was above my pay grade. So we were all sad when we knew, because we didn't go to a lot of Texas cities. We didn't go anywhere on the East Coast. I'm sorry, the West Coast. It was just really different. We didn't go to Florida because when we were in all those different places, we would sell out. So it was just really, it was interesting. But
and it's strange because at that time, that's when they were introducing Riff, this new character, new change to the show. Right. You would think they would have wanted to really be like, hey, look at what's joining us now. Right.
And I couldn't answer that question. So, but it was sad, but Yeah. One of the other things on tour, I don't know. Here I go on another tangent.
No, that's fine.
We would always, like I said, go to hospital visits. And, that was something that was so near and dear to my heart, and I know Carrie's heart, and actually everyone. Because a lot of times, even when we would go to the hospital visits, a lot of the other dancers and some of the other crew members would want to come along to see Barney with the kiddos at the hospital. Because they're at the hospital, they're not feeling good. They're either there because something, they need to get fixed, or they're going to have a surgery or whatever.
Yeah.
So when you see Barney going to the hospital, just lifting the kids' spirits up, it makes it all what it is about.
Yeah.
And I always talk about the one time I remember Carrie was in the costume. There was this little boy. He was in one of those oxygen areas where he couldn't leave because it had to do with his immune system. And Barney put his little hand up on the plastic, and the little kid put his hand up on the plastic. And then we wanted to give him something, so we made Barney turn around and we took a picture. And then we gave it to the little one. And
awesome.
Yeah, his parents said that he slept with that Polaroid. So it's so cool.
Oh wow,
that's so cool. Yeah.
Those are the moments that matter the most, right? Yeah, it's great to make the show, it's great to tour the show, but having that one-on-one with children, especially children like in hospitals, where I say I think they're often forgot about from the outside world, unless you're a friend or family of that person. You don't often think in your everyday life about those kids who don't get to just roam around the world and experience these things. And so having huge characters like Barney or Bob the Builder, or those kind of characters to come in and have that moment with children, that's what you guys all did it for. I would think, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you said, we brought their hero to them, you know, and they weren't there because they were feeling good. They were there because, you know, they needed something. And Barney was just there to brighten their day.
For sure.
And speaking about Bob the Builder, during I'm forgetting tours, Musical Castle and Let's Go Tour, there was a hiatus again. And we didn't even know if Let's Go Tour was going to happen. But during that time, Bob the Builder tour started. And so they hit another hat. They asked me if I wanted to be Miss Penny's assistant again, / when she left, because the tour was on its way, I was the understudy for the characters. So I was understudy for Bob and Minnie and Muck and Dizzy, all the characters. And that was fun too. It was good times. So lots of fun stories. So
that's awesome. Speaking of Bob and things like that, and aside from Barney and those characters, are there any other characters that you've been able to do? There's a rumor, and I don't know if it's true, but someone said that they believe that you also at some point played like Buzz Lightyear or something and things like that.
Okay, I worked with Barney. I worked with Sesame Street, and I worked with Disney. So I've worked with the three big ones. On Sesame Street, I worked at SeaWorld, and I was Cookie Monster on stage. Okay. Oh, what a fun character to play. Cookie Monster, you know, he's just so fun. And I played Bert. So
nice.
Yeah, it was good times. And then when I worked at Disney, I didn't get to perform, but I did meet and greets. So it was just as good. Okay. It was just different. You know, it's just different. Totally. Yeah. So I was Pluto and Buzz Lightyear. Buzz Lightyear, not my favorite costume again. I don't want to give Disney secrets away, but it's almost all rubber. And when you start to sweat, you're like really sweating.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, not my favorite costume. I want to be Pluto. Give me Pluto, please. So but I can tell you, out of those three, Barney treated us the best. They treated the performers, the cast, the crew like family. Yeah. Not to say Disney or Sesame Street weren't good. Mm-hmm. I just don't think as good. So for me, Barney's the creme de la creme. So
that's awesome. And I wonder if it's because Barney, even though it was this massive show, it's in Texas, so it's still like it seemed like until Hit took over and there was that bigger corporation behind it, it was still very much this close-knit like thing, right? That's just happening. Most people not knowing it's in Texas or anything. Right. And I wonder if that played a part into how inviting the atmosphere felt for people being involved.
I'm definitely, because since it was, like you said, in-house, a lot of us knew each other from different things. Like Steven knew Bob from Chuck E. Cheese, right? You know? So there's a lot of connections even outside in the dance world. I knew Miss Penny but I mean, after I got cast, she saw me do a few other dance things in the community. So we still were.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we were still connected even outside Barney.
Gotcha.
And,
yeah.
Yeah. So it was. Yeah. So I think you're totally right. 100%.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I asked you, what's one thing that you would have liked to see Barney do, and I have something that I don't know if you know about. But Steve White, speaking of Steve, and the hospital visits, he knew how important those were, and he wrote a video about Barney and the kids visiting a friend in the hospital, and he had like an entire script and everything, and marketing said that they couldn't market it, and so that wasn't a video that was able to be done. But I just think back to how important it was for Barney to visit those kids in those hospitals, that I think that movie would have been a hit, especially with hospitals and doctors' offices.
Definitely. And see, that's sometimes when you need folks to think outside the box, because sometimes it's not all about marketing, y'all. Sometimes it's about just giving back to the community, giving back to the kids, giving to the kids. So if you can't market it, well, maybe we're just going to make this because we need to make it. Maybe
exactly.
we make this because it's something that needs to be done, And Steve is a hoot.
He is.
Him and I, we communicate on Facebook, and he just makes me laugh. He just makes me smile, and so I didn't really know him that well on set, but since then we become kind of like buddies on Messenger.
Yeah.
So it's been really cool. He's a fun guy. He's really nice, and he's funny, and he's creative, and he's good. So
I love Steve. I got to visit him when I was in Texas back in March as well. And he's written a song for us for one of our upcoming movies this year. And so has Bob Singleton, worked with us. Those kind of folks is just like, I don't know. Me watching you all and imitating the show and now doing my show, honestly, because of watching your shows that you guys did, it's just an honor to have moments like this, or have people cross over and do some small work for our show or that kind of thing, where I just feel accomplished, even if it goes nowhere. I still feel accomplished with it,
If anyone has not seen your show, they need to check it out. It's cool. It's fun.
You.
It's very engaging. It's genuine. You're very natural with the kiddos, and
Thanks.
One of my favorite episodes is the bloopers. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's fun to show like what happens behind the scenes.
That's good stuff. So no, keep doing what you're doing. Okay.
Thank you. Couple more questions before we finish up. We talked about Riff just a little bit, but not many people, just like Dean, do they mention much about Riff. And you seem like someone who's much like me, where you welcomed new things and new looks to Barney, the ever-changing landscape, and adding things and changing things. Riff is a character that there's always a back and forth in the fan community and even cast and crew, where some people didn't think he needed to be there. Some people loved that he was there. Barney's World doesn't have him at all. Do you remember your thoughts on when they were like, we're going to add a new dinosaur, and that whole thing?
No, I thought Riff was cool. I still think Riff is cool. I wish they would put Riff in. Michaela, she was the Riff. She was, once again, voice character. She's a hoot, and she did an amazing job. The costume's cool. So I don't know why. Plus orange. I mean, you needed someone orange, so that was it was good for the color palette. So there was. I can't say anything bad about Riff. It was just really cool.
Yeah,
I worked with Riff a lot with the Little Dinos on tour, because we had two guys that did Riff, and so I would always get the opportunity to take Riff to the TV station, because sometimes they would want someone along with Barney, and I'm like, well, let's take Riff. Let's start promoting the character. So I mean, if you think about it, in some ways, Barney was very slowly, in its own way, becoming like Sesame Street. A lot of different puppets, a lot of different characters. And why not? It's okay. Maybe he's not in every episode, but it work around it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I worked I worked with Riff performing on set as Litterbot. So So being Litterbot was funny too, because at first they were going to build an robot, and they were Miss Albertson. She said, "Why are we going to spend all this money building a robot when we could just have Dave Voss go inside a costume and move like a robot? You know." So Albertson was kind of the one that got me that gig, and then I was Litterbot, and that was once again another fun opportunity from a home video, or was it home video
episode? Yeah.
I get them all mixed up.
Yeah. That's cool though, because I remember seeing that episode and finding out later that you were Litterbot and going, wait, what? Because it looks like an actual robot, and it's like, where does the person fit in that costume?
Yeah. So actually, I was sitting down in a chair that had wheels on it. So I was sitting down, and they put the top of the contraption on top, and it had a lot of swivels, so I can move it around and yeah. So it was fun. That was a fun costume.
That's awesome.
I could breathe, really awesome. I could see, I could move. It was cool, and I could sit down. So between takes, I'm like,
just relaxing. Yeah. That's awesome. Did anyone in the franchise, like the new kids, obviously the dinosaurs knew, but did anyone else know that you were the original Barney and that kind of thing? Like, was that like common knowledge for people?
Everyone knew.
That's awesome.
And I've had some folks, say, was I ever wish that I could have kept being Barney? And I told you, I said, no, it's time for me to give the reins over to what comes next. So there was never any ill feelings at all. In fact, I was just happy to keep working. For me, I was like, oh, this is just fun. This is joyful. So I had, so David Joyner, Carrie, all the guys, Josh, and you even had Antoine that did.
Antoine, yeah.
Oh, Antoine's amazing, and he's funny too. So, and then we had Rick and Patrick. So we had so many wonderful Barneys that were fun and amazing and it really special,
Yeah,
all of them. So
that's awesome. Before we start to wrap up here, I told you that what we like to do on this show is our guests, we like to have them bring something. Sometimes it's a couple things for people, but what like an item that you have that's Barney related that maybe you hold dear to you more than anything else. If you have that item with you, can you show us what that is and just explain why that's the thing that you chose?
Right. Well, I have, when you told me about this, I'm like, well, I have two that I use a lot. I have one that never leaves me, and I have one that's on my wall. So I have four. So really quick, the one that's on my wall is this one where there it goes.
There you go. Yeah.
When I was a polar bear on the Macy's Day Parade, and there's always a story. I remember they're like, okay, Dave, since I had done parades before, but never Macy's. Oh my gosh, it's so long.
Yeah.
They say you have to be hydrated. So what does Dave Voss do? Oh, I drink a lot of water. What does Dave Voss have to do when it's halfway through? The restroom. So bad. But we perform towards the end. So I'm like, oh, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? The pop moves. So anyway, I got through it. I did what I had to do. And I'm like, restroom. I need a restroom. I don't know what the key would be to hydrate at a parade.
I have no idea.
Depends. I don't know.
Yeah.
so that's why I keep that one on the wall.
That's awesome.
The second one is the Barney bag but we got on tour, so it's not the actual Barney bag. Oh, cool. So I use this a lot. I do clown work, so I do balloon animals for
what
kiddos. So.
Really?
Yeah, I keep my balloon animals in there.
That's awesome. I just started like teaching myself how to balloon twist just because I thought it would be cool to do that as a children's show host. So that's cool. I had no idea you did that.
Yeah, that's amazing. The easiest balloon to make is a snake.
Yes. Yes, it is.
It's just the balloon. Okay. The third thing would be this jacket, which I wore so much that it's frayed, and it's one of the Barney jackets from the set. So that would be the third. And I don't know if I can show you this last one, but it's a tattoo. It's on my shoulder. So this is this is the Barney thing that never leaves me. It's a duck.
Oh, that's awesome.
for when I was a duck. And
yeah.
My character was named Doogie. I was Doogie the duck.
That's awesome.
Those
wow. That's great. Thank you for sharing those with us. I love. We interview fans as well, so it's always everyone has their own different thing that they own that means a lot to them. But it's always fun from cast and crew, especially because you have things that other people just don't have, or ideas like a tattoo that it only means something dear to you, but that's the whole point of it, right? Something that has meaning, and it doesn't leave. It's just there.
Folks are like, "Oh, nice tattoo, nice duck." I go, "Thanks."
Yep.
Just don't tell them why, but
yeah,
it's because of Barney. So
for sure, that's awesome. That's awesome. Two more questions before we wrap it up. The next one is not Barney related at all, but David Voss related. What do you currently do today? Like, what's your life like? What are you still involved with dance or performing in any way and that kind of thing?
Yes. So just recently, I used to work for the VA as the yoga instructor and the dance instructor. So and tying into what I'm doing now is when I got my new job, I work at the Austin Police Department, but I still keep the dance group going. So we still meet once a week, sometimes twice a week outside. And since we don't have a space, sometimes it's in the park. And we still keep moving and grooving. And we've been booked for 2 gigs. So we are going to go dance at the Veteran Day Parade since we're all veterans.
Amazing.
And, we're not doing Baryshnikov. We're doing a lot of step touches because, it just is what it is, and then knees and back and all that stuff. But yeah, so I keep dancing in that aspect. I also dance with another group called Still Dancing Austin, Texas. Mm-hmm. And they are a group of ladies that are amazing. And I'm usually always their dancing Santa Claus every year. So I keep dancing there.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I do kind of my own silly stuff on YouTube. But for me, it's more of a hobby, and it's more goofing around with my nephews and nieces. So yeah, I keep busy like that. Yeah.
Fun where you can find it for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, before we wrap it up, the last question that I always ask everyone, and it's all about how you interpret the question that will determine how you answer the question.
Okay.
But the question that I ask every single person is, why Barney? Why do you think, for you, why this character?
For me, that is a real simple answer, because it brings joy to kiddos' hearts.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's more, but for me, when I break it all down, it's just that, bringing joy to the hearts, whether it's learning a new song, seeing your character, learning a dance, learning your ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, please and thank you. It's all about, and they don't know that they're learning half the time. They're just having fun. They're like, but they're learning at the same time. And that's what Barney was always about for me, was just making kiddos smile. So
for sure.
Yeah. And that's why I love the "I love you" song. I love you, you love me. And I also love the new one. I love you, but
me too.
I love you. Love me too. Yeah. So it's just, it's something where, that's what it's about. Is love.
Yeah. I love that. I always say, one of my favorite sayings is, you can't deny love. You can only replicate it, right? Like, as long as love is there, people can push back as much as they want, but the only way that you can fight against love is by showing more love to someone else. And I love that. And that's something that Barney taught me, and I try to teach kids as I move my own kids and then the kids we reach. I think that's a great way to look at it.
Well, and you can tell that you embody that in your show. I'm just like,
thank you.
You like I said, you can't fake it. It's genuine. So it's amazing. So
for sure. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. This was so much fun. We went a little bit over the hour we were supposed to do, but when you have fun, it just flies by. I just want to say again, like I said in the very beginning, thank you just so much for being who you are, for your role that you played in this franchise for people like us who found it as a safe space. Thank you for your service. And just thank you for just being genuine to who you are and sharing that with everyone in however form, whether it's your YouTube videos now, your Facebook posts, even though Facebook's weird sometimes and they mess with you for no reason, or your Barney things. Just having you around and having you as a friend and just watching your life as you go through is always a blessing. So thank you for that. Thank you for sitting down with me today.
My pleasure and an honor.
All right. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Spots of Love podcast. Put your name in the hat if you would like to be on the podcast, and who knows, maybe someday we'll see you in your spot of love. Take care.